Well, guys, if you're familiar with my next guest, then you're probably used to hearing him do exactly what I'm doing right now, as co-host of the Cryptid Creator Corner podcast for the award-winning comicbookyeti.com. Today, we're here to talk about his first comics project, a graphic novel that he is writing that is called Penny and the Yeti. It's an amazing story. I'm excited to get into it, as well as the story of our next guest, Mr. Jimmy Gaspero. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you, so much for having me. But yeah, I mean, work's going okay. Promoting the book, setting stuff up for Penny and the Yeti. As we record this, my birthday's in 2 days. So yeah, I got plenty of good stuff.
Nice, man. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem at all. I can imagine a lot of better things you could be doing for your birthday than spending it with me, but I'm glad you're here. So,
No, I look, I really like what you do. I mean, as somebody who has a podcast and does stuff with Comic Book Yeti, and we cover a lot of indie comics, but anytime you're covering something, like it's just it's hard. It's hard out there to do it, and there's not, a lot of money in it at all. So I appreciate anybody who is out there talking about comics and interviewing creators and, trying to get folks interested in what's out there on the shelves. So no, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about Penny and the Yeti.
no problem at all, man. And like I said, Penny and the Yeti, it's a great story. It is a book about a young woman named Penny and her sister, for the record, who are kind of living in this real constant state of tension brought on by their parents' dysfunctional marriage. When something magical happens that, has the potential to aid in all of these situations. And like I said, it's a fascinating story. It's a beautiful story drawn by Amber Aiken. And yeah, when you see it, you will love it, I guarantee. And like I said, I want to jump into this story. But before we do, I want to jump into your story. Because as far as I can tell, right, you've been active in comic book media about as long as I have. I got started in the middle of the pandemic, toward the tail end of 2021. And I remember seeing the Comic Book Yeti just a lot. I feel like this it's a small pool that we all swim in. So we're all vaguely familiar with one another. But I'm curious as to like
Yeah.
what brought you to the pool party, if you will.
No, sure. So Comic Book Yeti was started by Matt Leggetti. And I don't know if I ever, I don't, I never asked Matt like why Yeti other than it rhymed with his last name. But Matt had started Comic Book Yeti. He was doing a lot of stuff on his own, just talking about indie comics. And then he had, as I understand it, had brought in a couple other individuals to do some like a reviews editor. And a few other people. And Matt had reached out to me probably in, I want to say in 2019, because I would like, post stuff on Twitter about comics that I really liked. And you know, that's like the real fun of social media for me as somebody as a kid who like loved television and loved reading, even if it wasn't comics. But this day and age, having a connection to the people who are making the stuff that like meant something to me is like super cool. Like I've never been a person who, has gotten on and wanted to yell at people on the internet or do anything like that. I try to be very positive because that's just kind of like what I like. But Matt had reached out to me and he's like, "Would you ever think about like reviewing comics?" And I was like, "I have no background in art whatsoever. I just felt like I did not have the knowledge or the language to talk about comics, artistically, like the artistic side of it."
Mm.
And yeah, then a few months later, he reached out to me again, and he's like, "Why don't you just try it?" And that was probably towards the end of 2020. Um, and I finally said, okay, and I came on board. I reviewed a couple of things, and then they did some written interviews, but not a ton. And I thought, oh, well, as a lawyer, the only thing I'm really trained to do is ask questions. So I was like, well, I'll take on written interviews. So I did that for a little bit. They made me like the interviews editor. And then when Byron O'Neill joined Comic Book Yeti, he had wanted to start a podcast. And I said, oh, that could be neat. So we started the podcast in, I guess by 2020, by early 2022.
Hmm.
And yeah, and we've been doing the podcast for 4 years. Matt eventually left, and Byron took over as editor in chief and kind of kept Comic Book Yeti going. Like basically made sure it, we had people involved for a while. There was only a few of us. We've gotten some more people in, but in any event, that's kind of how I got first involved in Comic Book Yeti, and once I started doing I've only reviewed a handful of things, but once I started doing the interviews, I really liked it. And then once I started doing the podcast, I feel like my style is developed, hopefully a little bit in the past 4 years, but I just really enjoy talking to people. I mean, so much of my job is talking, and I like talking about comics. And even if there's something I don't know, I like hearing creators talk about the process. And I mean, I'll go as far into the weeds as anybody, wants to go. Like I've had creators that are sometimes like, well, that's too inside baseball. And I'm like, no, no, I want to know that. Like, let's talk about how it really works. Let's get into it. So it's been, it's been great. So that's kind of how I got involved in reviewing, and then and the podcast. Matt and then Byron have kind of brought me along, and Comic Book Yeti, now we have over 400 episodes of the podcast.
Yeah, a lot of like I said, we kind of cross paths, and most
Yeah.
of the time, I'm just looking like I'm either asking, okay, how in the world did they get this guest, or it's how are they fitting so many episodes in? Like, where they have the time to record these? This is crazy. You guys are nothing if not prolific.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, it's Byron, but it's definitely me. I do have a bit of that type of personality when there's, something that I really like and enjoy. I want to kind of just, dive in and do as much as I can. I also don't, I mean, I like to try and fit people on. I mean, I tell folks like, look, I don't know. Byron looks at the numbers in terms of how many people listen. I don't. I
Hmm.
said, I don't know if one person listens or 100 people or whatever it is. Byron says everything's okay, but I, I can't make any promises about that. But if people want an opportunity to talk about their book, I mean, like I said, I'll talk to anybody. I never want to be somebody that is looking at those type of metrics and saying, no, you can't come on. We need somebody with like a bigger following or a bigger name. Like I understand the economics of it. I understand when folks do that. I just never wanted to do that. I've talked to folk. I mean, I've had, like Phil Hester, Ron Mars on. I've also had folks on who it's their very first Kickstarter, their very first project,
Yeah.
and I just, yeah, I just want to give folks an opportunity to talk about being a creator.
Yeah, I enjoy the conversational aspect, right? Like I don't necessarily consider myself a creative in the way that my guests are. Like obviously, I guess it takes creativity to run a YouTube channel and make thumbnails and plan content and stuff, but like I don't know, to me, so much of that feels like creativity as a utility as opposed to an art. So it's fascinating having conversations with people who are like real creatives and who think about these artistic problems in such an interesting way. Um, with that, to your point, right? Like, yeah, there's metrics, but it's like I can't be concerned with them. The way I approach it is, I can't guarantee any number of eyeballs or anything like. So if I can't guarantee any of that, then you can at least count on a good conversation. And that's my aim every time, like let's have a talk that's insightful and maybe unlock something for someone who's listening or for you that's having the conversation.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I feel the exact same way. Although I will disagree. I think you're selling yourself short by using the phrase, real creative. I mean, we're all storytellers. Like whether you're letting somebody else tell their story but you're kind of guiding it, like that's that's the thing about comics. So I think you're selling yourself short a little, but you know.
That's fair. That's fair. I'd be a facilitator, I guess. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm comfortable with that word, but um, I'm curious though, because you said because you're a lawyer, you're good at asking questions. Like,
Uh,
how do
I
you
said I
feel
was I didn't say I was good at it. I said I was trained for it.
okay. So I am curious though, like how that a profession, right? I talked to Al Letson, who did the Mr. Terrific Year One series, and he's an investigative journalist, but he didn't go to journalism school, but he just kind of was a podcaster that ended up in this super like news based organization. And kind of the way he talks about like getting people's stories out of them is really interesting. And it's like, I think that works well in a field like this. But I'm curious as to like, okay, what things maybe in your law training that you found helpful in this side hustle?
Yeah, it's interesting because as a podcast host, when I first started, I found that I was conducting a lot of my interviews like a deposition, like I would, trying to draw out information, like at a discovery deposition, where, for any listeners who aren't familiar with that process, a discovery deposition, because I do personal injury work, so it's all civil stuff, car accidents. I mean, I've done a lot of different stuff over the years, but I do, car accidents, slip and falls, nursing home negligence, workers' compensation, all plaintiff based, the person who's been injured. And really, when you're doing a deposition, you're just trying to draw information out. And what makes a successful or at least an effective deposition doesn't always make a very interesting like interview. Um, so I had to like adapt that and remember how to have a conversation and ask questions like, a civilian, like a regular person and not an attorney. Um, but it's interesting because I find myself when I'm writing a story coming back to some of the techniques that I learned when not a discovery deposition, but when you're actually going through a trial and you're trying to get your client to tell the jury their story. And I almost sometimes in my head act like I am the attorney and the character is the client sitting on the witness stand in front of a jury, and I'm trying to draw out of them their story in an interesting way. And I do that kind of as like an exercise to help me write. So I kind of use those skills in different ways depending on what it is I'm doing. But yeah, my first few interviews, like I think going back and listening, I felt were like a little rough because I was doing it like a deposition.
I think that's interesting. First of all, I don't have much experience with depositions, right? I remember there was once Lil Wayne's deposition went viral at one point. I don't remember what he was even on trial for or being sued for, but like it got testy with between him and the attorney that was questioning him. And then another was Michael Jackson's deposition. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's like uh, it's not, I guess for the audience, it's not so much like the hard questioning like A Few Good Men or like an episode of Law and Order, but it
yeah,
really is like this sort of almost like repetitive nature of questioning. Like it's more like what is that, Menace to Society, where I think it's Wood Harris that's like not Wood Harris, gosh, what's that dude's name? Bill Duke, who was like, so you went to the restaurant at 5 o'clock. And then he comes back to it. It's like, so you went to the restaurant at 7 o'clock. It's like, oh, okay,
yeah.
that's tough.
With
But
but it is like with the deposition, there's no jury present, so you're not necessarily trying to spark like an emotional reaction. You're a deposition, you're just trying to find out information, and you're also, if it's an adverse witness, you're trying to lock in their testimony because if they tell you something and they're a witness for the other side, if they tell you something at a deposition, for example, we went to the restaurant at 5, and for whatever reason that's important. And then at trial, they testify and they say they were at the restaurant at 7. The first thing you're going to do is take out that transcript,
Mm.
and you're going to be like, Mr. Kicks, do you remember we had a deposition and I asked you a bunch of questions? Do you remember there was a court reporter there? Do you remember you were under oath? Do you remember you told me that you went to that restaurant at 5 o'clock? You just told this jury now that you went to that restaurant at 7 o'clock. Don't you think you'd have a much better memory of what time you went to that restaurant, months ago when we did the deposition? So not that the listeners were talking, for comics need to hear how, the inside baseball of how depositions work. But yeah, so that's the purpose of it. But I found out I was doing interviews like that. Like, oh, so you wrote this and it's out on this date. Like it was almost like I was putting correct on the end of every sentence. Like I was just asking leading questions. So we had
Right.
to, hopefully I'm better at that now after 4 years.
I can see that having, I can see how that's beneficial for you as a writer, though. Like, um, I once was doing sound for like a traveling, what do you call this? Theater. I have no theater background, but I do have an audio background, and somehow I ended up doing sound for these stage plays and productions. You're not supposed to call them plays. Anyway, uh, the theater director, his name is Michael Green, and something he says to the actors very often is like, if you know who you are, then you'll know how to act. And it's like it kind of speaks to this core principle that like you have to know the character, but you also have to know yourself because it's easy to just kind of say lines, but it's a different thing to sort of embody an experience for an audience, especially when you're acting on stage where you have to really convey the emotions, right? But because of that, you end up as an actor asking all these questions like, okay, well, why does he feel like this? Why did he do this before? What's his background? I'm trying not to be a crazy nerd and talk forever, but even like there's a an interview that Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan did about sinners for the Proximity podcast, and they're talking about these backstories, these intricate backstories that they came up with for the Smokestack twins. And none of that stuff appears on screen, but it's a part of their story and it informs how they show up on screen. So I think it's cool that you're like, all right, well, I'm asking myself all these questions about these characters. So then the dialogue that I'm placing in their mouths is natural to them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you want it to sound authentic. And that interview with Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan is a perfect example. You know, I did theater in high school and in college and a little bit thereafter, just, college productions and community theater, nothing really beyond that. But, you would see somebody come in who was like maybe their first acting class or their first time, and we would play theater games, but we would also do things to try and like investigate our character. And yeah, you would inevitably have somebody who would say, "Why are we doing this? Like, we have a script to follow. None of this has anything to do with it." And you would say, "Yeah, but like all of those things that aren't on the screen, like they or aren't on the stage, can inform your performance. It can, you're not just reading the words. Like we're not just static people who just say lines at each other. I'm talking with my hands. We do hand motions. We have facial expressions. There's different ways that we different tones that we use, different intonations, different line readings, and all of that can be informed by this backstory. And I think it's the same way with writing. Like I want my characters to sound authentic. And to bring it to Penny and the Yeti, especially with that, because we have this Yeti that walks off a page into this family's home, and
Sorry, one
we
second. I didn't even realize I did that. I think I was trying to mute myself and press the wrong button.
yeah, you're fine.
All right. So you're doing the theater exercise and so to
Yeah.
bring it back to Penny and the Yeti, that's the last
Yeah,
thing.
so bring it back to Penny and the Yeti, because we have this Yeti that walks right off the page, and once when Penny and Yeti get together, there's a ton of imagination, a ton of fun stuff. mingled in with this family that's a bit in crisis, these parents that are kind of constantly kind of going after each other. So I and Amber Aiken, the artist and co-creator who did just a tremendous job, has this beautiful, whimsical, magical style. Um, I felt that we both felt that we needed the family to feel as authentic as possible because the more authentic the family felt, I thought the bigger the fun imaginative moments would work.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's one of the things that I would do to try and make sure that Fenton and Maxine, the parents in the story, and even Peri and Penny, sounded authentic. They sounded like real people. Yeah, at least I hope. I hope it comes across that way.
No, they sound real, but even more importantly than that, the story feels real. And maybe it just hits close to home because, my parents divorced when I was 10. So much of my childhood when I was Penny's age, like, was that dysfunction and like arguments over petty things. And
Yeah,
it's interesting the stuff that you remember, right? Because like even like, not to dive crazy deep into the story to spoil anything, but like even some of the things the parents, Fenton and Maxine are arguing about, right? Like didn't necessarily exist then because we didn't have smartphones. But what I found interesting was like kind of how vivid the arguments are because it's like for the kid experiencing it, it really does like kind of take over whatever is happening in the moment. And I think what's also great about it is watching Penny's imagination soar and like when this Yeti jumps off the page, how she's able to sort of escape into that world with him. And there's even points where it's like the parents' dialogue isn't like as loud or like isn't necessarily intelligible at the moment, and it's like that's an amazing touch. But yeah, sorry to not to skip ahead too much. It very much feels real on all parts.
well, thank you. We Amber and I and the entire team at Papercutz, like the two editors we had on it, Stephanie Brooks and Teddy Leo, our letterer Buddy Bodoin, like everybody really worked hard to make this story the best that it could be. We had some things that we didn't want any kid reading it to feel like, if their parents did get divorced or if their parents stayed together, like we didn't want any kid to feel ostracized by the book. We wanted them to see something in terms of what the kids were going through, just maybe a little bit of themselves, or even the friendship between, Penny and Yeti. Even if you have an amazing home life, parents are together, parents never argue, like whatever it is. I think there's a lot too in the relationship between Penny and Yeti. I really think I Amber and I created a friend with Yeti that like we would really like want to have like the friendship between Penny and Yeti. I think of a few of my friends and I'm just like, yeah, like that's those things like some of my friends that I'm still close with and I've been friends with for years. I wanted to imbue like all of that when we get together, which, it doesn't happen as often as any of us would like with careers and family. Um, but I think there's something special about Penny and Yeti's friendship. And that was very important to us to make sure that that really came through.
Now, did you have a favorite character to write dialogue for?
It was definitely Yeti.
Okay.
Um, it was definitely Yeti because there were a couple of things that like I obnoxiously thought were very funny that that I wanted to make sure we included. Yeti is a very good friend. Yeti is like down for anything in terms of the fun and the play and the imagination. But Yeti's a big guy. He breaks things sometimes. He doesn't really mean to. There was one thing that I thought was really funny that um like I said, obnoxiously laugh at my own jokes because I wrote it. But when they're talking about doing something, I can't remember what it was, but Yeti says something like, "And I promise I won't get sauce on me again." I don't, and that's like I don't think. And then there's a scene where they kind of do a big fun play imagination and they have creatures that they're kind of riding, and like the imaginative world that they create is very big and very fun. And like there's one character that says something, and then Penny says something, and yet he's like, I don't like heights. And I just like, I don't know what it was. Doing those things made me giggle, and I'm like, well, I hope somebody else appreciates this because I'm really getting a kick out of myself. Like, I
It's-
hope Amber laughs when she has to draw this, you know?
right. I hope it's not just like dad jokes, right? Like you love it, I love it. Like maybe hopefully it's actually funny, right? Like, but
Yeah.
for for me, one of my favorite parts is like toward the beginning, like this Yeti jumps off the page, and first of all, like they just take the Yeti to school. Like that's crazy. But the teacher's like, oh, everybody say hi to the Yeti. And Yeti's like, oh no, no, it's just Yeti. I love it.
Oh,
And he just takes
thank you.
everything uh like I guess literally like in that way. Like it's just
Yeah.
very deadpan, but like not deadpan like I don't know, Conan O'Brien or something, but like he's just that innocent. And I think that's
Yeah.
what rings or shines through from him.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like that part.
No problem.
Um, yeah, I really loved writing like the moments when they were like having fun. And then there's a couple of scenes where they kind of plot and plan because, just to talk a little bit about the story, Penny thinks that Yeti is there to help her get her parents to stop arguing, which,
Hmm.
you know, um, that's it. Don't worry for anyone listening. That's not really what the story like is about. Like we're not trying to say it's the kid's responsibility to fix the parents' relationship. That's not what it's about, but that's just what Penny thinks as a kid. Um, and they do a couple of scenes where they like plot and plan stuff. And when
Hmm.
I saw those pages like that Amber put those together, I mean that's just like I mean I've had this is my first and Amber's first like full length graphic novel. I've only ever done shorts that have been published in a couple of different anthologies, but that's like the dream. And I have heard so many creators, you probably have too, talk like that are just writers and talk about getting art in their inbox and
Yeah,
seeing the art for the first time. That was like one of the, and I'm like, I want that. That's why I started, creating. I want that. I want to feel that. I want to feel that too. And when I would see that page, there's like two pages in particular. Um, and it's Penny and Yeti kind of planning it out, and then it's like the little scenario of them doing it, like their little Ocean's 11 type kind of heist at one point. And I'm just like, yeah, it's just such an amazing feeling to think like, yeah, I wrote some words down, and then Amber turned it into something that I couldn't I just didn't see it looking exactly like that, and it's way better than anything I thought of. It's definitely the thing I love about comics. It's definitely a medium where like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
for sure. And since Amber's not here, I'm just gonna, you know what? I'll share. Well, no, I won't do that because I'm way too deep into this book. Let me move to the beginning and then I'll share. Um, but because what I want to do is just kind of, I don't know, we have to highlight this amazing work that's been done. This book is beautiful. First off, let's see, can I fit
Thank
this?
you.
That's the wrong way to fit it. All right. Anyway, this book is like it's. I don't know how you. I'm terrible at describing art, but this is very much like whimsical
Yeah. Yeah, like
and
that's one of my favorite things that they did in the beginning because there's a scene later on in the book that, where that image of uh Penny and Yeti kind of on a rope swing is in
mhm,
the book when they took it and they put it on that in the beginning of it. And it's just um one of my favorites. Just that image of them on that rope swing. And yeah, I mean Amber just did I mean an amazing job. Her sister helped her by flatting it, and
mhm.
then but Amber did all the art, did the colors, and yeah, I mean her. her facial expressions, the stuff she focuses on. She did a lot of things to make sure it's clear that we're really kind of seeing the family and seeing everything like from Penny's perspective. This is kind of how a kid sees what's going on. Yeah, I just think she did like, you know, a fantastic job. And yeah, as we go through it here and we see right away this the story starts with we see Penny and we see the parents and they are arguing kind of right off the bat and we see Penny's response to it. The first section of the book kind of Penny then has like one-on-one time which with all the other members of the family. We meet her older sister Peri
Mhm.
and yeah, the first panel that we see Peri in with Peri and Yeti, or yeah, Peri and Penny. Um, yeah, I love the design that Amber came up with for Peri. She's the one that likes cryptid. She always has a series of cryptid t-shirts. Like there's a Loch Ness Monster one. I think later on there's a Mothman one, and she has very like big sister, always kind of annoyed energy.
Uh-huh.
So,
I think what I love about it, I'm gonna stop sharing so y'all have something to look forward to. But what I love about it, their relationship is like I was the older brother in that equation.
yeah,
And while I don't remember being as like disaffected by my parents arguing as Perry it seems to be, I certainly remember being very much annoyed with my younger brother, right? And so it's like when you see these portrayals, it's like, God, why is that kid so mean? And it's like, no, no, no. Why is the other one so annoying? That's the real question. But I think really it's just to show that this is a real family. It's a real family. I think Amber's art really helps to convey that emotion in every moment. I even love like the angles, like how a lot of times when you're seeing the parents, you're seeing them in like this almost hero angle because that's how the kids would see them, like they're looking up at them constantly, and a lot of times that's the perspective that we're getting as well. And
yeah.
so you kind of get a taste of like how big the world feels around Penny. I thought that was a nice touch. But backing out a little bit, something that's interesting to me, you're a lawyer by trade, but you've been creative. You've had theater experience. You've been writing short stories and comic book shorts. And for whatever reason, you've decided like, no, I'm gonna go like all in on this, and at the very least, see this idea through. Why?
Um, yeah, great question. A couple of reasons. Like I said, I did theater in high school and college, and then even a little bit afterwards. The last show I was ever in was in 2010. So I'm going to answer your question. Sorry, but I'll just
Oh,
give
no,
you a
you're
little bit
good.
of
You're good.
background here. So last show I ever did was in 2010. My buddy Cass, who's probably my closest friend other than my brother. My buddy Cass still does theater. He's a teacher, teaches business, and does theater, and has been doing it pretty much all his life. Was doing the producers, the musical, and they needed people. And my wife she was a dancer, growing up, and was an excellent tap dancer, and they needed tap dancers as well. So he recruited my wife and I to be in the producers, and we had a fantastic time. Um, but at that point, I hadn't done anything in about a year. We did the producers, and I was just like, yeah, it's just a lot. Like it was 2010. I was married at that point. We were thinking about starting a family and having kids, and yeah, then my oldest was born in 2012, and it was just work and kid stuff. And I'd been asked to do, community theater every once in a while, but it just didn't seem like a good time. It's like a lot to rehearse 3 days a week. And I hadn't done anything. And then, like, 10 years goes by, and I, I mean, I like my job. I like being a lawyer, but I felt like I didn't have any type of creative outlet. And I thought, no big deal. But after a decade, I really missed it. I missed kind of not necessarily being on stage, but I missed doing something. And I was reading all these comic books, and I was like, I never thought of being a writer. Like, I like telling stories, I like telling jokes. I just never occurred to me. Like, I was a psychology major at St. Joe's, then I was a probations officer for a year, and then I went to law school. Never occurred to me to, and I'm not a particularly good legal writer. I'm much better, like, I'm fast on my feet. I'm much better in a courtroom. Um, but yeah, I never thought about being a writer. But I was reading all these comic books and I loved them. And I I just felt like, well, why not? Like, I don't want to go back on stage. It's a lot of, you know, rehearsal time, and I don't know if that's what I want to do anymore, but I wanted to do something. I'm like, well, let's scratch this itch. Let's see if this is what it is, you know? Because I started writing in 2020, right before I started with Comic Book Yeti. So the writing came just before joining Comic Book Yeti, but I'd been reading comics and like posting about them on social media. And yeah, like I got a lot of no's. I was submitting to anthologies and got a lot of no's, but I got one or two yeses. And man, the one or two yeses, I just felt like I could have got 1,000 no's. And that one or two yes, and seeing something that I wrote, you know, in an anthology or to get published or, you know, to somebody just to read something and send a message to me like I would to some other creator and say, "Hey, I read this story. I really liked it." Or, you know, "Hey, nice job with this." Yeah, I was like, "Ah, well, I'm going to keep doing this. I like this. Let's see how this goes. I like comics." And then I started the podcast, and the podcast just, or Byron started the podcast. I started co-hosting with him, and that just like dumped a ton of gasoline on the fire. Like actually talking to other creators, and that just made me more. That just made me want more, you know, more to be part of that like club.
Mm.
And so yeah, I kept at it, kept doing it. Was got published in a handful of anthologies. Had enough like little stories together that I kickstarted my own anthology of just stuff that I had written, and had this art and wanted that Amber had done because this started as like a 4-page short, just um to show my Penny, my daughter Penny, how comics were made, and I pitched it to Mad Cave, and Papercutz really liked it and loved Amber's artwork, and yeah, like once I got started and got that little taste of, hey, here's your name, you know, on a book,
Mm.
in an anthology, it was, I just, I was, I don't know. I mean, I just, it was, I just felt it. I felt like this is what I want to do. This is how I want to tell stories. I want to be part of this club. And yeah, to write my first graphic novel, to be, you know, an all ages book that means a lot to me, that means a lot to Amber. I couldn't have asked for a better publisher than Papercutz and the people that were involved. And honestly, there's something real. I mean, as we record this, you know, my birthday is Saturday. I'm going to be 47. And I don't know, there's something that I get a kick out of myself of being like, oh, wow, I'm 47 years old and I'm going to have my first published graphic novel. And there's a definitely an element like as a dad that, you know, with my kids, like they hear me talk about work sometimes, but you know, to show them there's a book with my name on it, like that, and we've read comics and graphic novels. They're 13 and 8 their entire lives. Um, so there's definitely some element of I don't know exactly what they feel about it, but you know, maybe one day they'll be like, yeah, my dad, you know, I can do anything. My dad had a book published at 47, so you know, we're going to do whatever it is we want. That's that's what I hope they get out of this, that they just got to try, you know?
For
So in
sure.
any event, hopefully that made some semblance of sense.
No, it makes all the sense in the world, right? You got me by about 12 years. Um, but I very much feel that. Like I got a 9 to 5. It pays well, you know, we're blessed, we're good. Um, I do this comic book stuff not because it makes me money. Most months I might break even. Some months I might be a little bit under, but I'm like, hey, I can pay for comics and talk to comic creators. I'm living an amazing life. And if there's anything I want my kids to take from it is like, whether it's paying your bills or not, like figure out how to pay your bills. That's what responsible adults do. But don't let life drown out the joy. Like
Yeah.
find that thing that like makes you happy and learn how to keep it around. It's just a better experience that way. And so yeah, the never give up aspect is certainly important. Now, what's crazy
Yeah.
though is I'm listening to your story, and maybe just because you're trained as an attorney, you're going step by step by step. Yet somehow the I pitched it to Mad Cave, and now this is a book part just kind of feels like a magic wand. Like how did that go for you? How scary was that? And then to go from, okay, we got 4 pages to we greenlit a whole graphic novel. How in the world do I make this 136 pages? Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah. It um it's a bit of a magic wand, and then my fairy godmother left and was like, "I look, I'm none of that bippity boppity boo stuff, all right? I did this. You're on your own for the rest of it." I mean, I wasn't really on my own. I had Amber was in it with me. Yeah, so uh, I'm terrible at making time to write unless I have a deadline. I'm great if I have a deadline. I'm like Bruce Willis in Armageddon. Like I've never missed a mark, sir, like um but I'm terrible if I don't have a deadline. I really have to like really make an effort to carve out time. And so I had, you know, uh had like I said, had some things published and wasn't sure like what was next. I mean, I have like a notes app on my phone filled with ideas and a notebook with a bunch of stuff. And I just wasn't sure, like, well, what was the next thing? Like, am I going to try and write a first issue and get an artist and kickstart it? Am I going to put something together and pitch to like publishers? I hadn't really done that. So I said, you know what? I'm going to force myself to, um, to pitch a story. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put a packet together with a synopsis and some artwork and like everyone that I've talked to and things that I've seen online, like they tell you to do. And the art I had was this 4-page short called Yeti and the Big Stomp, which my Penny and I came up with a story idea. I wanted to show her how comics were made, so I took the idea, I scripted it. I had been paired with an artist, Beck Kubrick, for the first thing that was ever published of mine. And I reached out to Beck, and I really liked Beck's style. But Beck wasn't available, gave me the name of 3 people who were. One of them was Amber. As soon as I saw Amber's art, I said, like, Amber, this is like a story my daughter and I came up with. It's 4 pages. Would you be interested in drawing it, coloring it, lettering it? And she's like, yeah, oh, absolutely. And paid her for that. She did it. It was amazing. I got to show Penny on the iPad. Look, remember that story? Look, we made a comic. That's you. You're in a comic. You're a comic book character. Look, there's a Yeti. Because she said the story should have a Yeti because she knows of Comic Book Yeti. This was 4 years ago. This was in it was like May or June of 2022. And so fast forward 2 years later to early 2024, and I was like, all right, well, what could I do? Like, am I gonna put one of these ideas that I have? Am I going to script some of it and get an artist? And I said, oh, I have Yeti and the Big Stomp. Could I maybe turn that into something? Like, what type of story could I build around this 4-page short of this girl and a Yeti going to a diner? Um, and I came up with the outline. I sent it to Amber and I said, hey, I'm thinking about pitching this to Mad Cave. They have Maverick, they have Papercutz. Here's the outline. I have no idea what's going to happen. Like maybe nothing, but I just want to make sure like you're okay. If for some reason they say yes, like you would want to do this. And she's like, oh, sure, yeah. So you know, I had just done an outline and we had Amber's art from the short. I pitched it to them and didn't hear anything for a little while. And then, yeah, one of the editors got back to me and they're like, hey, we really like it. We'd like to talk to you. And I mean, when I tell you all along, I was like, it's probably nothing. I
Mhm.
mean, it's so hard to make anything, and the business of it is tough. Like, this is like the first thing I've ever pitched. Like, it's probably nothing. And then we had a conversation with an editor, and then we talked to like an editor and one of the other people at Man Cave, and all along, I'm just like, it's probably nothing. I think I did that. It's probably nothing until Amber and I signed the contract, and I still remember I was upstairs and I came downstairs. My wife was on the couch, and she saw the look on my face, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, we just like, agreed and digitally signed the contract for Penny and the Yeti for like a 114-page graphic novel." She's like, "That's great. What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I have to write a 114-page graphic novel. What do you mean what's wrong?"
Now,
Because and I the editor reached out and they're like, "Hey, do you have any of the script? Can I see some of the script?" And I'm like, I said, "Look, I'm going to be honest. I really like the whole time was like, this might not happen. I don't have like more of the script yet." I said, "Give me 3 months. Does that work?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I took 3 months. I would write in my notebook by hand on a Saturday, and then I would type it in and edit as I go on a Sunday. And like all along, was like, is this good? Is this terrible? Is this good? Is this bad? And then just did that for 3 months until I had a full draft of the script. And then had sent it to Amber. I sent it to our editor, and we started editing until we could get stuff locked so Amber could start drawing. And like once the script was locked and Amber took over, it was like, I was like, okay, that's at least that part of it is done. And then once I started seeing the art come in from Amber, I was just like, oh, oh, this might be good. This might be good. Like Amber really elevated it to like another level. But yeah, I was absolutely terrified that I told the nice people at Papercutz that I could write a 114-page graphic novel, having never done that before. And I don't know, I told him I could do it, and I just did my best, and we really all the whole team really worked hard to make this story as good as it could be. There was um you know there was a lot went into it in terms of like finessing it, and we were all on the same page about what we wanted to show with Yeti and Penny and the family. But yeah, I mean, no, yeah, it was terrifying to actually sign that contract and then have to do it, to be honest with you.
now, did you have an attorney look over this contract for you, sir?
I did. I did. Me. I did. I did
Yes.
it.
Yes. Now, you've got this deal signed. You got 114 pages to write. Are there resources that you're looking to help you script this? Are there books that you may have read, or is it just you in a notebook figuring it out?
Yeah, I mean, when I first had the idea to write in 2020, I went and got a bunch of stuff from the libraries. Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, Bendis's Words and Pictures. I always forget the actual title of it, but it's Bendis's book. Denny O'Neil wrote one
Mhm.
about writing comics. And yeah, I went to my graphic novels that have scripts as back matter.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, oh, wait, I remember seeing a script in this, and I'm like looking like through my shelf and like just pulling them off. And like I would look at the script and it's like, oh, that's how they format it. That's how they format it. And I had written a couple of short comics and had some things published. So I just hadn't done anything for that length. So, but yeah, those were some of the resources. I mean, I love a graphic novel that has back matter that includes a script. I think for any creators out there who are just getting started and like want to know where to start, if you have a graphic novel that has script pages in it, it's even better if it has, thumbnails. Um, dig them out, study them, see how they're formatted, see how the thumbnails look, see how the script changes. I mean, that's an amazing way, I think, to, get a sense of what you need to do to write a comic script.
And not to be promoting too many other people, but Marvel's got a new series out. I haven't been able to check it out yet, but it's called From Script to Page, where they'll take a character and just put a bunch of scripts for that character, and then like basically the script, thumbnails, finished page, and that's one story. Then you move on to the next, and it's like just really interesting examples. I'm assuming it's aimed at like a young reader just to see how things come together, but for an aspiring writer or even artist, like that type of stuff is gold to me.
I no, I yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Just to get us, I get really worried, or at least I was early on, that coming at this as a lawyer and just having done legal writing for the past, I don't know, 20 years, um, or at least 15 at that point. I I was always concerned early on, like, oh, am I doing this wrong? Is this how you format it? Like, do I use a tab after do I have to write the character's name? Do I number the dialogue? Like all those different things. For Penny and Yeti was the first time where I'm like, I can't do that. I can't be worried that I'm going to make, some mistake, or an editor's going to tell me, oh, this isn't how we do it. You did something wrong. If that's the case, then let them. We'll fix it. Um, I would I would write in the script sometime, Amber, this is what I'm thinking for this panel. But if you have a better idea, let's talk about it. Or maybe something like this. I wasn't precious with it. I wasn't, it has to be this. This is my idea. I don't know. Maybe there's something better. You're the artist. Could you do something like this? The script was much more of a dialogue between Amber and I. I
Mm.
think at least to me, I think that's why the book reads so well, and I really do think it is I think we did a really good job, and I think that's part of it, that it wasn't like page one, panel one, has to say this. It was more of a conversation between the two of us. Like the script wasn't on any fancy software; it was a shared Google Doc, and we just wrote comments and edited it, and yeah.
It very much feels collaborative. Like it almost feels like a book that's written and drawn by the same person. Like the way you all work together, from colors to letters, is it's just it works really well. Um, and like I guess the term would be it's a very unified vision, and I think it's better for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. It like I said, man, this is again, it's a book that hits me in the feels. It reminds me of my childhood, some of the best parts amid some of the more trying parts. I guess that's the question I didn't ask. Probably should have asked toward the beginning, but this story, it feels very personal. It almost feels in a way like a universal story, just about how kids deal with adult situations, or like even a sort of loss of innocence. In this book, it's not so much a loss of innocence as it is like a fight to build a fort around the innocence. And I love it for that. But what brought this story to the page?
Yeah, I mean, part of it was like my daughter Penny. Just like a particular time, with my wife and I, and like a particular argument about absolutely nothing. And I just remember the look on Penny's face, and coming to the realization, like, oh, like we think we're just arguing, the
Mm,
two of us. And that's not what Penny sees. You know, she's also feeling things. She's just not sitting there watching TV why the two of us are bickering back and forth at each other. Like she's having an emotional reaction to what she is hearing and seeing. And I, I don't know why it was that moment right there. It's partly also because Penny is like, if anyone in our family is an empath, it's definitely like Penny. She's can as an 8-year-old, she can very much key in on what somebody else is feeling. And yeah, I just remembered that. And so when I was thinking of what story do I come up with for, all I had the 4 pages and Penny and Yeti go to the diner together and it brought me back to that. And then
Mm,
from there I was like, I don't see a lot of families that are in, um that are kind of in that type of crisis. Like I see a lot of stuff where it's really bad
mm,
and it's like it's a drama. And I see stuff where in kids literature where it's like the aftermath of a divorce and we're
mm.
trying to figure out how to navigate that. And so I didn't want to say one way or the other, like what happens. Like, we're not telling a story where these two people need to get divorced or these two people are definitely going to stay together and everybody's like happy at the end. I wanted it to feel authentic again, but I wanted it to be about Penny kind of finding her voice or finding a way um, to kind of communicate those things, But in the beginning, her and Yeti go on adventures because she thinks Yeti's there to stop the parents from fighting, and then along the way in the writing of it, I discovered that it was a lot more about Peri and what was going on with her than I had first thought, and that really kind of helped Amber and I think, kind of key into how the story was, the conclusion that we were writing to when I realized like, oh, Perry's going to play a much bigger part in this than I at first thought.
Yeah. And again, I try not to spoil things. I'm staying really close to the beginning of this book, right? But we talked a little bit about, Perry being the older sister and just kind of being annoyed, being like that kind of stereotypical big sister in a supporting role, right?
Yeah.
But it's worth mentioning that the reason we have this Yeti and we get to go on this adventure at all is because Perry does at the very least have a moment of empathy for her sister. And it's like, hey, I made this thing for you. Like, let me help you out. So it's not this like super antagonistic relationship. It's like she's on a journey and Penny is on a journey and they'll have to intertwine at some points. But like, it's just kind of like a reminder that we all deal with things in different ways. And I thought that was really poignant.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was once I knew, I mean, I had an idea as to how Yeti was going to enter their world, and then once I realized that um, Perry was going to have a larger role towards, later scenes in the book, it was very important that Yeti came into the situation through Perry somehow, and then so that then the art, the sidewalk chalk art, and then the drawing that Perry gives to Penny, and yeah, I mean. Perry does have a bit of the stereotypical, older sibling. I was the oldest of three in my house, so I kind of get that older sibling role. And there were a couple of things that, the get out of my room, and then, as soon as Yeti shows up, Perry changes her tune fairly quickly.
Like, oh, this is cool. I can play. I can hang out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. This man, this book is great, and I could talk to you all night about both this book and your journey. But I have to say before we wrap up, like this is an amazing project. Like to go from 4 pages to this graphic novel. It it's like I said, we talked about it earlier. It's like it does feel a little bit like a magic wand at points, but like a magic wand couldn't make a book this good, right? Like there's real talent behind this between you and Amber and everyone else involved. Like this book feels like something special. So I'm really excited for other people to experience it. This book is out in stores everywhere on April 21st via Papercutz. So you can get it at your local comic shop. You can find it at your local bookstore. They can order it for you. If you're listening to this before or as it's released, the final order cutoff for this, if you're ordering from a comic shop that is on March 30th, which is my little brother's birthday. The annoying little brother he is. Anyway, uh,
Well, happy birthday to your little brother.
thanks. I'll tell him happy birthday. I love you, Tyler. But the final way to cut off for this book is on March 30th. So call your local comic shop. Let them know there's a graphic novel, Penny and the Yeti, that you gotta have, right? Buy it for yourself, buy it for your kids, buy it for your mom. They'll love it. Everyone involved will love it. And yeah, before we go, is there any place you want to shout out or anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Um, Thank you for listening. You know, you can check out the Cryptid Creator Corner if you want to check out another podcast. You can, we have like over 400 episodes on the Cryptid Creator Corner. Yeah, if you pick up Penny and the Yeti, I hope you like it. Let me know. You can find me on Blue Sky at Jimmy Gaspero. And yeah, I don't know. Just go and get some, even if you don't pick up Penny and the Yeti, get something else. Get some good comics out there. There's a ton of great stuff. If you're listening to this far in and you're like, I listened to this whole thing, I don't want any all ages books. There's a ton of great stuff coming out. And it doesn't matter. It's a golden age of comic books. I just got a sneak peek at Chris Condon's and Andrew Eric and Charlie Adlard's Of the Earth. It's coming out through Image. It's like echo horror. They describe it as what? No, they describe it as like what was it? Blood Simple meets Tremors. I don't. It's just really good. It's so there's plenty of great stuff coming out. That's what I'll leave your listeners with.
Amazing. Amazing. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming out. Follow the Cryptid Creator Corner podcast. Go to comicbookyeti.com because there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on that site. The stuff that something I get jealous of. Like when you have a team, when you have more than one person working towards a vision, like there's so much more that you can achieve. And it's really good. Like the work shows. But yeah, so check that out. It's got the seal of approval if my stamp counts for anything, as does this book. So again, Penny and the Yeti in shops April 21st. Go ahead and pre-order that through your local comic shop. And huge shout out to the team at Mad Cave Studios and Papercutz for bringing this to us. And with that, I will see you guys in another episode soon. You can make sure you follow us on YouTube because these interviews are mostly coming out there. So youtube.com/@ Comics Are Dope podcast. And we'll see you in another one soon. Until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.